Greetings. It's me. I'm live. I can't believe it, y'all. Hello. This is my first time going live here on TikTok. My name's Catherine Needham, and I'm here to talk about healing ancestral wounds. Very specifically, it's doing something on my screen. Hello. Hey, welcome. I'm like, somebody's here. I can't see y'all, so it's first time. Give me some grace. Thank you. But I want to talk about ancestral healing, specifically around colorism in the Black community. However, and I'm inspired by this Black girl train. Look, I got to make sure. I got to double check. Oh, thank you. Anyway, I was inspired by the train. Someone said, when are you going to go live and talk about this? I go live on Facebook. I'm a Facebook convert. So I have a group on Facebook where I talk about this stuff a lot. It's the stuff that we're talking about specifically, I call shadow work, the work that I do to address the ancestral wounds. If I don't answer you guys, if somebody's typing, I'm going to try to keep my eye. I'm like, do I need my glasses? Maybe I don't need them. Yeah, I do. Okay, sorry. But we're here because I've written a book. Sorry if it's backwards. It's called Healing Through Shadow Work, and I was inspired to write it after doing a lot of work on myself, starting around, it was right after the 2016 election when people started losing their minds. They lost their minds, y'all. I actually lost a lot of friendships during that time, some long-standing ones, and I've done the work to kind of work through it all. And we call it shadow work. Shadows are the things that we can't see about ourselves, like the behaviors, the way we treat people and treat others, like the negative patterns of behavior that we just can't see. There's positive stuff too. So that's another part of it. We can talk about that another day, not tonight. But we have to also look at the positive side that helps us pull ourselves out of dark places when we remember our strengths. So welcome. I want to encourage anyone that's here that has heard about the Black Girl Train, doesn't understand it, doesn't want to be on it, thinks it's silly, especially if it's something that is triggering you or you're really trying to figure it out. Hey, stick around. We're not talking about the train, but it's time to start paying attention and really listening to what people have to say. I have been blown away. I've been blown away by the women that are on this train and the things that they're doing. They're funny, they're artists, they're doctors, just so many things. It's so inspiring. And I want others to see this inspiration and feel it because it's palpable. You can feel it. You can feel it. Welcome to those that are joining. I'm 52 years old and I can't see, so it's hard for me to, I have a little issue if you're typing something. Like I said, we're talking about healing these ancestral wounds. This is my book. It's Healing Through Shadow Work. And colorism is something that, for me personally, I don't know if I've worked on it. I've worked on so many things, but it affected me in certain ways throughout my life. Probably the biggest moment that I remember thinking about the shade of my skin was I was in college and I was hanging out with the crew. We had to, that's a long story, but anyway, it was our Black student union. So we were all hanging out and I forget what someone said. They're like, yeah, you're light skinned. And it was like a needle across the record for me. Okay. I had never even, we talked about we're Black folk. We talk about light skin, dark skin, paper sack, brown, high yellow, we had all of the terms for the others. But I had just never looked at myself that way, honest to God. So I still don't know. I don't get it. And again, I haven't had a horrible experience that has repeatedly happened that has made me bitter about it. And I was also made aware of it. My mother was very conscious. She passed away in 2021. So I'm still healing from that too. But she's at the same time, she was such an inspiration, especially for getting this book done and really thinking about, I really believe that I am presenting something in a new way. No one has presented anything like this, y'all. I'm serious. If I had full-time, and no, issues around money to get marketing and the states and the this and the that all set up, I would. I do have a lot set up. But I work full-time job. Like, that's the reality. Mama's working full-time. So, anyway. But my own experience, I think it's important for us to share our experiences with this, especially, I think it just helps the world. The world is watching. I mean, like, this stuff it's on the interwebs. I want people to see something positive. I'm going to put words out there to uplift this planet. So that's what we're doing tonight. So it's important. One of the things I talk about in my book is understanding that a framework. I present a framework for kind of approaching this work. And I'm a very technical, like, analytical person. I always have been, like a math and science kind of person. But at the same time, I was also very spiritual, raised by very spiritual women, going to church. Started following a guru in my 20s. I've been to India, so I still follow my guru. But the church stuff is deep within me as well. So it's all good. It's all good. But what was I saying about that, y'all? I have 1,000 notes here. I lost my train of thought and I can't see. These are just, this is our first time out. I didn't even think anybody would join. I was like, let me do a live on New Year's Eve. Nobody will come. But for those who have joined, thank you. I offer a framework. That's what I was talking about. I offer a framework in my book. And it's a very simple framework for examining yourself and doing this inner reflection. So if you are somebody that maybe isn't that spiritual, hasn't been to church for a while, don't know how to really start digging into yourself and doing what I just call inner reflection, sitting with yourself, sitting quietly with yourself. I mean, there's some things you're going to have to do to kind of approach this work the right way. And you don't have to I always suggest that people set aside time, like set aside some time in the morning or in the evening. I do both. I in the morning and at night, I spend time reflecting on things, meditating, talking to God, writing down my goals and dreams, and doing this kind of work. But it's for me, it's kind of just how my brain works. So I basically wrote a book about how my brain works. But I think a lot of people's brains, especially if you're very analytical and never having had like a spiritual background, I think it can kind of bring you into that world of spirit. Because the heart of my book is getting back in touch with your spirit. We have to get in touch with our spirit. We have to start healing the hurts. These ancestral wounds affect us. I mean, I realized that during my healing, like, wow, I was like, wow, this like self-esteem, self-worth thing is deeper than my mom and dad. There's the mom and dad issues that we all have, but it's deeper than that. And then I started looking at my mother and her life and the things that she dealt with and her self-esteem and all the positives and negatives. I was really focused on some of the negative patterns. So one of the things, let's make sure I got all my stuff here. Let's focus on others and more on our own reactions. Okay, so I see a lot of things on TikTok where people, I get it. We get triggered by this. If you are getting triggered in any way around colorism, whether it is someone calling you dark or light, to this, to that, you're not part of the black people because your skin tone is off, to me, it's ridiculous. And at a certain point, my goal with this book was that we learn how to understand ourselves. It is about awakening to yourself on the deepest of levels. And to do that, the stuff that hurt that we just can't seem to figure out, that runs so deep, especially within the black community. Because, all the colorism stuff goes back to slavery times. We know that. Within my own family, I know of an instance where a cousin this was a couple generations back. Well, yeah, about 2, 1.5, where he was too dark. The dad said he was too dark and he couldn't stay in the house. So my grandmother took him in for a while. That kind of stuff happened, you guys. People are, I haven't had, at least that I'm aware of. Guys, I'm in my own, I live in my own world. If people are being mean to me, I'm like, okay, I'm being nice to you. I'm going to make a joke. It really doesn't, it just doesn't hit me because I'm solid. I know who I am. So this framework that I've come up with is really built on beliefs. So it sits on the foundation of the house is beliefs. And so there's a lot to dig into with beliefs. But one of the core things in my book is that your beliefs are, I'm losing my words. that your beliefs are formed based on like your core wounds that happened, and the things that happen in childhood. So you have your childhood happening, and you have your parents exacting their wounds upon you, not on purpose. We pass these negative, limited beliefs and patterns of negative patterns down we do it without realizing it. When we don't address anything, when we don't work on our healing, and we don't become conscious of our behaviors, of how we are treating others and treating ourselves, it just happens automatically. But a lot that stuff that happens in childhood, those core beliefs that we form in childhood, are influenced by the wounds that our parents give us. And so if we're passing along these wounds about, for Black people, it's turned into something that was used to divide us. Let's divide them and talk about, let's treat this group better. They can stay in the house. That we turned it inward on ourselves, and now we judge each other for it. Like, I just want everybody to see that. I think we all recognize that at some level. Like, well, I don't even know if we need to dig down into all the shadow work. Like, we know that. I think for us, it is about recognizing recognizing your own behavior. So when we talk about this foundation of beliefs, what beliefs were you taught about this? Like, I shared some of mine. Like, my mom was kind of, I wouldn't say she was an activist. Like, she didn't go out and protest and stuff, but she wore the fro and was, down for the causes back then. So, and she was a young mom. So she had me when she had me when I was 0. She had me when she was 20. I was born in 1970. So she was a child of the 60s. And for me growing up, it was about, she was very conscious of the shows on TV, all of the shows that portrayed Black people kind of stereotypically. She didn't like me watching, like, Give Me a Break. What are all the shows? All the shows. Basically any show from the 70s that had Black people was very stereotypical. But we watched them, and now we look fondly back on them. But, my mom was very aware of that. She was aware that, and pointed it out every time we were watching a show. Like, literally all of her life, she did this to me. So I was aware at a young age, about the privilege that actors got. So she would point out, how come there's never a dark-skinned love interest? And she said all this stuff so much. Again, I didn't realize what shade I was. I didn't think about it. I still don't. I think it's silly. So much so that I think I identified more with being a dark-skinned person. Again, just because when somebody came to me in college, I was like, I was so thrown for a loop by that. I still am. Anyway, so it's just interesting to some people, this, it triggers them really bad. And it probably brings up, there probably, that tells me that they have had some experiences, some very negative experiences around this. And a lot of it comes, again, within our own community. That's what we have, 2023, this is the last day for us to do it. I'm like, you can get it all out, one last whatever on TikTok. But we're not taking that negativity against each other that came from such an ugly place. And we just took it on and just perpetuated it. The white folks didn't even do anything. Here you go. Let's give you some issues to carry for generations. Yeah, the foundation of beliefs. Beliefs is a big part of my book. I think it's a big part of how we operate because our beliefs break down into thoughts and feelings. Repeated thoughts and feelings form our beliefs and and create our experiences. So with beliefs, what I ask people to do is really think about what was taught to you about whatever issue is we're dealing with. And so in this case, it's colorism. And how that has affected you. Does it affect you? If you're a white person watching this, I don't think it does. Unless it may affect somebody that you know, and then it probably affects people that you know and you don't realize it. So it's something to be aware of, things that we deal with. So your beliefs on, I'm losing my train of thought. Your beliefs that you learned about it from your parents. That's what I was trying to get at originally, is those core beliefs. Those core beliefs are programmed into us by the age of 7. They affect how we treat other people. They affect how we treat ourselves and how we think of ourselves. So when in the course of doing this work for me, I realized that I had been, into the whole spiritual thing for a long time. Like since my early 20s, I've been in spiritual stuff. Never really thought about self-love. I started hearing about that like in my 30s, like self-love. Like, what does it mean? I had to know. I'm like, what does it mean? Like, I think I love myself. Like, who's going to say they don't love themselves? So I break that down in my book. I'm like, let's talk about what it means. Like, I'm going to need some concrete things to prove I either love myself or don't. That's one of the things I put in my book. So part of that is being kind to yourself. Treating yourself kindly, giving yourself patience and grace, or being patient with yourself, giving yourself grace, especially when you're doing this kind of work, this shadow work, where you're looking at some painful things within yourself, within your family, that may be causing rifts in friendships, relationships. I don't know. I mean, all kinds of stuff. It can be hard to look at this. So I do really normally begin talking about shadow work, beginning with, like, what is our mindset as we go into this? Because you have to believe in something. You have to have a belief in something. It doesn't have to be God. It's God for me. It doesn't have to be God for you. It could be, some people like to call God the universe. And then I'm not going to get into that argument about it's God, it's the universe. And the way I see it is you're talking about the same thing. You're calling it different names, but that's a whole different argument. Maybe you believe, it has to be a belief in something that gives you faith and lifts you up. There's so many things that you can get that from. Like, one of the things I learned as I've been grieving my mom is I get a lot of that strength and like that deep unconditional love just thinking about her and like the experience. I had a good mom, y'all. I had unconditional love. And I realize how precious that is because like I said, I have a Facebook group. A lot of people have fallen out with their mothers. And now that I have a daughter, it's like the thought of that, like, I'm like, oh my God. So of course I'm too hard on myself. And I'm like, you're overanalyzing everything. Anyway, let's get back to it. The other thing that I realized I probably should have made this a broader topic. Well, we're going to keep talking about it because there's these issues within the Black community and they all stem from the same place. Colorism, texturism, having good hair, bad hair. I used to think I had bad hair and I wanted good hair. That's just and it's how we talk. It's kind of like when I was young, my grandmother and all my aunties, all of her sisters, I grew up around like the older Black ladies, taught me all the wisdom. Man, they were awesome. But they said colored. They didn't say Black people. Like to them, it sounded so harsh. Like it was that time when things are changing. And so it's been interesting living 52 years now, been around for a while, seeing exactly the things that they were talking about, how things change. Because like to me, like when they would say colored, I didn't think much of it. But now people get like really offended. Don't call somebody a colored person. My mom would always say, what color are they? We would just crack jokes. We were good. Like we knew who we were. My mother is an inspiration to me. You have to find that inspiration. She apparently was light-skinned. Apparently, looking back, now that we know our shade. But she suffered through some terrible things. So like I saw another lady here on TikTok tonight. I forgot her name. I'm sorry. I think her name's Natalie. She's like a spiritual advisor lady. One of the folks in the spiritual community that does readings and stuff. She was really upset because I guess somebody had said something about her being light-skinned, and it just really upset her. And when it comes from within the Black community, it's even worse because like, guys, that is self-hatred. It's self-hate. And so that's what we got to get to the core of with our beliefs. Where are those beliefs coming from? Who told you that if you believe that, I don't know what the belief could be because I never had these beliefs. If there's anyone in here, I would love to hear some of your beliefs around this color, anything at all, like light-skinned people get more privilege, something like that. That's what I'm trying to get at, because I really had a point where I see things so differently, and I always have. It's not like something that's changed in my life after doing something. I've just always looked at things a different way. It makes it hard for me to see the things that, really understand what people are going through around this issue. But definitely, I think that's just a thing for taking into 2023. Something I really hope we learn on this Black Girl Follow train is being kinder to ourselves. We're noticing that when we're kind to others and support others, it's lifting them up. It's making us all feel better. So less judgment, preferably no judgment. But, we're going to, baby steps, less. We'll work on less until we get to no judgment. So we have our framework of beliefs. And, we spend a lot of time, we in the book, spend a lot of time digging into our beliefs. I have a chapter on it, chapter 2, and it's about the foundation of this work being that your inner child and your core wounds, when you put those together, you get those core beliefs. So sometimes we have to dig down into, where did they come from? What was my mom's experience? What was my grandmother's experience? I always use them as examples because they raised me. And, I had the advantage of having the stories passed down. I had all of my aunties around telling me about what things were like for them. It wasn't pretty. And they were, my one aunt was great aunt. She was light-skinned. I mean, not really light-skinned. We had people in our family that, ranged from dark, very, very, very dark, to passing for white. So, and everything in between. So again, the people that, especially the ones in our community that really get triggered around this, it's pointing, there's something has happened. There's been an experience, and that's what needs to be healed. We have to start thinking about the reason we look at the beliefs is to find the limits to the beliefs. We're looking at where is this belief hitting up against the limit? If I think that only light-skinned people get to do thus and so. I can't even think of a belief. I should have had that on deck. Sorry. You have to kind of dig down into the why of that. So I have some exercise. I have a whole bunch of exercises in my book to dig down and to think about your beliefs and where they came from. That's really the point of that. On top of this framework, then, once you work on all of that, and then we can move up into the other parts of the framework. And there's 3 parts that sit on top. It's relationship healing, inner work, and outer work. So first, let's talk about relationship healing. The first relationship that we really want to heal is the one with ourselves. So we look at we start with that inner child. To me, your inner child is your link to your spirit, and your spirit is your link to divinity. So, or whatever you want to call that, to something higher than you, something greater than yourself. It's that thing that gives you hope and faith and all those things, whatever that is for you. So a big part of the book, or the focus of when we start looking into this framework, the relationship healing, you're in the center of your universe. So we start in the middle with you. We look around it's kind of just like who orbits you, just like you're the sun and there's little planets, your family, your parents, your children, excuse me, and we examine each of those relationships. Now, what we're talking about tonight with Ancestral, we really want to focus on your parents' beliefs and the things that were passed to you, and your, as far back as you can go. You start to see a pattern. The point of that is what is the pattern? Do we keep passing that down? When it's not healed, you guys, it comes out in, it's not like you're going to see my mom did this and my grandmother did the exact same thing and her mother did the exact same thing. It comes out in different ways, these wounds, how we respond to them. Each generation, it'll come out a different way. And so when we say that we've healed these generational wounds, a lot of times people say, well, I don't beat my kids anymore. I done healed that wound. Yes. I'm okay, yes. To be fair, that is healing something. But if you're still carrying on the emotional part behind it, if you're if it's a verbal abuse instead of physical, that, it can change in generations. We have examples of all kinds of abuse and abandonment in my family, and in my book, I whittle it down, we whittle away, I whittle it down to abuse and abandonment and different permutations of that. Everybody has it. Everybody does. And so part of this work is just acknowledging, just being able to acknowledge, oh, wow. I had some epiphanies this year around Blackness, around my own identity. And for me, again, because I kind of experience things in opposite ways of people, for me, it was more realizing that I need this community, the Black Girl Train confirmed it. But needing community is really important for me. And again, like I'm older, I'm living away from the extended family, so I don't have that community of family and the aunties, the uncles, the different generations within your family that help you stay in tune with each other and what's happening. And I think we've lost that. I'm hoping that through this Black Girl Train, we can kind of get that back. There is wisdom. There is so much wisdom. And there's so many, like I'll say, there's wisdom with everybody. But especially these older women, folks like myself, who've been through some things. We've healed some things. But also the young people. Everybody brings something and has something to offer. And so we have to start just listening to each other. And I think, again, like I'm feeling the goodness on the train, y'all. So we look at these relationships and then we start doing the inner work. It's not like you don't do one thing and then the other. A framework means you just work within it. You know that like you have your beliefs. Now I got to look at my beliefs in regards to this particular relationship. And then I have to do the inner work around that. The inner work is your thoughts, your feelings, and all the stuff that starts coming up for you when you dig into the past, when you really start, thinking about how you were treated or the mistreatment or the abuse or the abandonment. It's when the hard stuff that's hard to, sometimes that can make people get stuck in a depression, get in a really low cycle. And so again, that you have to approach this work, but you have to have a solid foundation. So we're working on building that solid foundation with our own spirit, which I feel like a lot of us in the Black community have. I shouldn't say that. I don't know for sure. But I find this a lot more Black women, whether it is, I'm not saying everybody's going to church, but there's a sense of, I can't put my fingers on it, just a belief in something greater. You have to be to endure the things that we are endured. You have to find a way to do that. And we do that through our faith, through our beliefs. And we have those beliefs, hopefully based on our experiences. That's why it's good to check your beliefs every once in a while. Like, is this a limited belief? Like, am I bumping up against something that is not right? So the inner work, I want to talk more about inner work, because another part of inner work, I will break something down. If you tell me like 5, let's break it down into 5 ones, and let's break that down into, I like numbers and logic and process flows. So I broke down not the way we process, but the things that we experience as we do this inner processing. If I can find it, that'd be great. I break it down to like how we respond to, here we go. Doing the work. Well, first, with a lot of what this shadow work, a lot of people don't call it that. It's really just self-awareness, digging into yourself, understanding yourself. One of the first things is identifying your triggers. So, especially like I'm trying to keep the topic around colorism. Are you triggered? What are your triggers around this? And if anybody feels like typing those, that would be great. Do you get triggered in any way around colorism? In any way at all. So that we identify triggers, that's part of inner work. Then we trace those triggers to the root cause. That's another part. It's not a step. Well, it is kind of a step. Tracing them to the root cause, and I list several ways that you can do that, but it always leads you, when you trace the triggers, you're leading back to a belief. So, we can just skip right that. Let's fine. Let's get to the beliefs. Get to the good stuff. And then one of the things within this, the way I approach shadow work and this healing, is forgiveness. Forgiveness is a big part of it. Now, I'm not talking about just blindly forgiving people that have hurt you. I'm talking about first forgiving yourself, because you're going to get to a point where you realize that you have behaved a certain way, acted a certain way, held certain beliefs that were maybe limited, that were negative towards other people or yourself. And so there's a period of just working on forgiveness. Now, when it comes to forgiving others, that can be a little harder. This doesn't happen overnight. You're not going to do shadow work in a weekend. Well, maybe you will, if you're lucky. But I know for me, like around forgiveness, I have Abandonment issues. Don't we all, guys? Don't we all? My dad was not in my life. He came into my life when I was 12. So it was just we tried to have a relationship on and off, and it ended up being off. I don't know where he is. I've tried to contact him. And when my mom died, it was almost like I won't make a bad joke, even though my mom would think it was funny. I'm going to say it because she would think it was hilarious. It was almost like the final nail in the coffin. Sorry, Mom. She was a jokester, so that's okay. There's nothing bad there. Nothing bad, I promise you. But he didn't call. He didn't, and I am in touch with people that he is in touch with. We're from a small town. That was I was like, I don't think I can ever forgive that. And so I had to get at peace within myself of knowing that I am not going to get an apology. For a long time had wanted an apology from him just for being a bad dad and not being around and all that, the abandonment. I didn't get it. Not in the way I wanted it. To him, reaching out and making contact was hey, I'm trying. Can't you see? I want a tearful apology. Thank you. But sometimes it's hard to forgive because that's what we want. And we want an apology. We want somebody to admit that they did something wrong, or we want them to hurt just as much as they hurt us. So that's the stuff that takes time to work through. And when I say you're not going to do it in a weekend, I mean it. But you finally get to a place where you decide, I don't want to hold on to that. Why am I holding on to this need for an apology? When I know myself, I know what's going on here, and I'm good with that. So I'm going to forgive myself for maybe holding on to that resentment and that anger for so long, letting it harden my heart. That's where we have to start letting go of stuff. Just have to. Unless you want to have a hard heart forever. Please, guys. What else do we have here? So we have our forgiveness is a big part. Letting go. Of course, I break it down. I'm forgiveness, letting go. Acceptance. Acceptance is such a big part of this work too. At some point, you have to just accept what is. And then that's an example is even dealing with my mom and her death. It was very sudden. It just happened so quickly. It was wait, what? What? And I still can't even believe it. I want to call her. She's not here. But I have gotten to a place of acceptance. I know she's gone. I get it. It's still, some days is easier to accept than others. Put it that way. But I would say for the most part, I've accepted it. And so I have, part of accepting an experience is acknowledging that it made you who you are and honoring it as part of who you are. I think I like that. What else? I had more things in there. We also want to have gratitude. That's another thing I find so much of within this, at least on the Black Girl Train. I can say that with certainty. So much gratitude. I think part of that is getting into, it's that good feeling. You got to get into your good feeling. And that good feeling is going to come when you have gotten really back in touch with your spirit. You understand the things that you believe in that bring you joy, that lift you up. And you honor yourself by connecting with that regularly. The more you do that, the kinder you're going to be to yourself and the kinder you're going to be to others. And the other part of that I didn't really get into because we're not here to dig too much into the nuts and bolts of how we do this, but had to do with treating yourself. Oh my gosh, I'm losing my train of thought. I'm nervous. Treating yourself kindly. Being authentic, learning what it really means to be authentic, learning how to set loving boundaries. I added loving in there, but learning how to set boundaries. They may not come out sounding loving in the beginning, but that is part of self-love. When I said I wanted concrete things, that's part of it. It is being able to set those boundaries, being able to express yourself and communicate your feelings authentically to people without being hurtful. Sometimes we have to just work on getting them out. And then the next step is working on being a little gentler with our words because we're all just trying to feel better and heal. And so, that is upon you the next part of our framework that I'm going to get to. We have our relationships, our inner work, and then we have the outer work. I made up that term, guys. I made it up, put it in the book, and now it's a thing. Outer work. That is putting your beliefs into practice. That means going out and doing and being that thing in the world that you say that you are. You say you believe this and that and the other. Show me, treat me that way. How are you treating yourself differently? How are you treating others differently with your new perspectives? That's what that's about. And it is the practice of learning how to express ourselves, learning how to have hard conversations, learning how to set the boundaries. We had issues with boundaries in our family, like emotional boundaries, sharing too much, and all that stuff. So we all have our things that makes us unique. Time check. Sorry. Okay, I wanted to be on here 30 to 40 minutes. We're at the 35-minute mark. Does anyone, I'm sorry that if I'm not really paying attention to the scrolls here, but does anyone have any questions about shadow work or this ancestral healing, specifically around, well, you can ask it around anything, ancestral healing in general? I do think that what we call curses, that's just my opinion, my belief. It's my belief. That we were like, we're breaking generational curses. The way that this is how you break them. It's not just that you stop doing a physical thing, but you have to stop the mental and emotional parts of it as well. That's the stuff that I say gets passed along. Like we may have stopped a physical thing. There's no more physical abuse, but now there's emotional abuse, or there's verbal abuse, or mental abuse. And so those are the things that we have to acknowledge. And that's what's hard at first, acknowledging that painful stuff and looking back and realizing, and how it has affected you, how it has shaped who you are. And at first, it can be upsetting, depending on how old you are and how much life you've lived. I had a lot of things to look back over, guys. But it gets, eventually, once you start really clearing away those shadows, and they just get cleared by facing them, acknowledgement, working on, the outer work of being better out in the world in some way. But once you do that, you can really start focusing on the positive, and it can become a way of dealing with things. What's this? Somebody's doing something. I'm going to decline. Oh, somebody said, invite me to your live or something. I'm interested in this shadow work. Sounds powerful and I need it. Okay. Come on, classy mom. Read my book. It's called Healing Through Shadow Work. I wrote it in I started it in probably 2019 actually, but published it in 2021. And, I did this through my mom dying suddenly, trying to get through the year. It kind of gave me something to focus on. And also she had encouraged me. She's like, just do what you want to do. So I tried. I did some coaching for a while. I do have a website. It's CatherineNeedham.com. I have a webinar on there. It's called Healing the Spirit Within. It's a great webinar, you guys. It's only $39. That's not a lot. I priced it low. I did. I actually had it free in the month of December. It's a really good one for bringing you into this work a little more coherently than me on my first TikTok live. I would love for you to check that out, or just the book. You can get it on Amazon. There's also an ebook. And I think I've been inspired by these women on this train. I'm like, I'm making my course. We're doing a course, guys. It's going to be fun. I had started down that road last year. So I got really discouraged last year. Looking back, I'm like, okay, I was grieving too. That was a big part of it. But I got discouraged because I was like, I'm going to go for it. I didn't quit my job. I was contracting and my contract ended. So I'm like, I'm just going to try this coaching full time. Let's do it. Get my classes up. So I have a bunch of that stuff on deck. It just wasn't the great launch that I was wishing for. So I ended up having to get back to work, get back to the 9 to 5. And that's okay. You guys, I'm so passionate about this work. I'm like, you're going to see my mug a lot. Hopefully you're learning something. Hopefully you're getting getting a new perspective. There's so much we can all learn from each other. We take these little pieces and then we all grow together, and it's cool and it's fun. And it makes talking about some of these really painful things not so bad. So, I hope you guys, hey Queen, witchy lips. Hi. I'm about to wrap it up. I appreciate everyone that clicked into. I don't click on the lives. I'm like, I'm so bad. I want people to join my live now. I'll start joining some lives. Pay it forward. Okay. So yeah, if you're interested in follow me. I'm like, what can I say? Everybody's probably following with the follow back train. I got 2,000 new followers, which is pretty cool. Started at like 600 something, so that was cool. I got my book. I'm going to be talking about shadow work more, and if you come on my Facebook, or excuse me, my TikTok page, there's some weird other random things in there too, okay? I'm trying to express my authenticity and my creativity. I hope you all have a beautiful and blessed and prosperous new year. Look forward to seeing you all, meeting you, interacting. And I have to do my I see you. I always like to give my pronouns there. So thank you all again. And hopefully I'll come back and be a little more organized about this and be able to see. I'm like, I can't see, y'all. I'm getting old. Anyway, thanks, guys. I will see you out in the interwebs if I can turn off the live. Take care, everybody, and Happy New Year. I may have to turn my phone off. I really don't know how to stop the live feed. Oh, wait, there we go.